What if the Bible already solved cancel culture like 2,000 years ago? Spoiler, the answer is love. And no, not the mushy Hallmark kind. Drop a S if you're ready to trade clout for compassion. Welcome to the Deep Dive. You, our awesome listeners, have brought a truly powerful piece of ancient wisdom to the table, 1 Corinthians chapter 13. And we're going to explore why this well-known passage still hits so hard today, especially when we think about how we interact with each other.
Right.
Our mission today is simple: to unpack its core message and see what it meant back then, and crucially, what it means for you in your daily life right now.
It's striking that you begin with this whole idea of solving cancel culture. When you delve into 1 Corinthians 13, what you find is the Apostle Paul.
Right.
He's addressing this community, the church in Corinth, that was wrestling with its own forms of social division and friction.
Yeah.
They had issues around spiritual status, using different gifts, and just basic interpersonal conduct.
Yeah.
So while the context is different, Paul's words on love, they weren't some abstract theological exercise. They were a practical guide for navigating complicated human relationships.
Yeah.
And that feels incredibly relevant to the challenges we face today, no, Chris?
Absolutely. So let's dive right into verse 1. If I speak in the tongues of men or of angels, but do not have love, I am only a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. Now, when we talk about tongues of men or of angels, this wasn't just about being articulate or persuasive. It was understood as this extraordinary communication, perhaps even divinely inspired. But Paul gets straight to the point, doesn't he?
He does.
Even with this incredible ability to communicate, if love isn't the foundation, it's just noise.
Exactly. The imagery here is so strong. Think about a resounding gong or a clanging cymbal. In ancient times, these were often used for dramatic effect, to signal something loudly.
Oh, yeah.
I think Paul's point is that even the most impressive displays of speech or spiritual gifts, they're vacío if they lack that motivation of love. The core insight here, perhaps, is that true impact isn't about the volume or the impressiveness of your communication,
Right.
but the underlying care. And in today's terms, viral content without compassion, it's ultimately just ruido.
Wow, that's so true. It really makes you consider our world now. We see so many individuals with these huge online platforms, incredible reach on social media.
Yeah.
They can command attention, but is that attention built on genuine care and connection?
That's the question.
It's easy to become, as some might say, noise pollution, a lot of sound, but not much that truly builds others up. So for you, our listener, a question to ponder. As you communicate in your online interactions, in your everyday conversations, are your words primarily intended to build up others, or do they mainly serve to inflate your own ego? Alego para pensar.
Moving to verse 2. If I have the gift of prophecy and can fathom all mysteries and all knowledge, and if I have a faith that can move mountains but do not have love, I am nothing.
Nothing.
Here, Paul intensifies his argument. He's not just talking about communication, he's including profound spiritual insight, comprehensive understanding, even the kind of faith that Jesus spoke about, the kind that can achieve the seemingly impossible. And yet, without love, it all boils down to nada.
Nothing. That's a pretty forceful statement.
It is.
We often equate knowledge and ability with inherent value, right?
Yeah.
The more you know, the more you can do, the more important you are.
Absolutely.
But Paul is asserting that without love as the bedrock, even these extraordinary capacities are ultimately meaningless.
Yeah.
It highlights a potential paradox. Someone deeply knowledgeable about spiritual things or possessing remarkable faith could still be driven by pride rather than love and humility.
Precisely. Consider the expert in any field. They have this vast reservoir of knowledge, but they struggle to connect with others, right? Who lack empathy or the ability to explain things with patience and kindness.
Right.
Their expertise might be undeniable, but its true impact is diminished by the absence of love.
Yeah.
The challenge for you, the listener, is to really reflect on how you utilize your own abilities. Are you primarily using them to serve and uplift others? Or are they mainly a tool for self-promotion and impressing others? ¿Cuál es tu intención?
It's a great question. Verse 3 brings this down to a very practical level with tangible actions. If I give all I possess to the poor and give over my body to hardship that I may boast but do not have love, I gain nothing.
Mm-hmm.
This isn't just about intellectual or spiritual gifts.
Right.
It extends to acts of profound generosity and even personal sacrifice. You can literally give away everything you own. You can endure immense personal hardship.
Right.
But if the underlying motivation isn't love, if it's driven by a desire for praise or recognition that I may boast, then it ultimately amounts to nothing.
The sentiment, it's not just what you do, but why you do it.
Yep.
Rings so true here. Love is not transactional. It's not about performing good deeds with the expectation of something in return, right?
Yeah.
Whether that's earthly accolades or some kind of spiritual brownie points.
Right.
This echoes Jesus' teachings in Matthew 6.2, where he cautions against those who perform charitable acts publicly to gain the applause of others. The key theological insight is that the true value of our actions, it lies in the intention behind them.
This really shines a light on the phenomenon of performative activism, or charity, that we see quite a bit of today, particularly on social media. It's easy to post about a donation or a volunteer effort, and while those actions might have some positive external effects, the fundamental question Paul poses is, what's the real driving force?
Right.
Would you still be so generous? Would you still make those sacrifices? If there was absolutely no public acknowledgement, no likes, no shares, no virtual applause, es una pregunta fuerte, ¿verdad?
Now, in verses 4 through 7, Paul begins to define love itself. Love is patient. Love is kind. It does not envy. It does not boast. It is not proud.
Right.
This is where we get a clearer picture of what love actually looks like in practice. He starts with patient, makthumia in the original Greek, which signifies bearing with irritation and difficulty, without retaliation.
Right.
So having a long fuse. And he says, kind, Christetste, which is about actively working for the good of others, even when it's inconvenient for us. Son dos cualidades muy importantes.
Absolutely. And immediately following, he contrasts love with some really destructive behaviors, envy, boasting, and pride. Considering the context of the Corinthian church, which was clearly dealing with internal divisions and a sense of superiority among different groups, these points really hit home. Love at its core is the antithesis of this spirit of comparison and competition. It's not threatened by the success or the gifts of others. Instead, it celebrates them. No tiene celos.
Exactly.
Yeah.
In our modern world, think about workplace rivalries. The constant pressure to measure ourselves against others on social media. Envy and pride fuel so much negativity.
Oh, yeah.
Paul is saying that love operates on an entirely different set of principles. It's about lifting others up, not trying to diminish them to elevate ourselves.
Right.
So a practical step for you this week. In a situation where you might be tempted to engage in a competitive negative or envious thought, consciously choose kindness instead. Observe how that changes the dynamic. Try to be amiable.
That's great advice. Verse 5 continues this description. It does not dishonor others. It is not self-seeking. It is not easily angered. It keeps no record of wrongs. This delves even deeper into the behavioral aspects of love in our relationships.
Right.
Does not dishonor others speaks to treating everyone with respect, regardless of their background or perceived status.
Right.
Is not self-seeking is the opposite of always trying to get your own way or prioritizing your own needs above everyone else's. And is not easily angered suggests a significant degree of emotional self-control, not being quick to take offense or lose your temper.
But perhaps one of the most profound phrases in this verse is, keeps no record of wrongs.
Yeah.
The original Greek carries an even stronger sense.
Right.
It's about not dwelling on past offenses, not holding on to grudges, not constantly bringing up past mistakes. It's as if love actively chooses to forget slights and hurts.
Wow.
Given that the Corinthians were actually taking each other to court and clearly harboring resentment, this was a direct and powerful challenge to their actions. It's about choosing to perdonar.
Wow. Yeah. The theological connection here to God's forgiveness, as mentioned in Colossians 3.13, is so powerful. If we believe that we have been forgiven for so much, how can we justify holding on to these, minor grievances against others? Think about our contemporary lives. How often are digital interactions filled with reminders of past disagreements and hurts?
Right.
This verse is a radical call to let go.
It is.
So a challenge for you, our listener. Think about someone towards whom you might be holding on to resentment. Today, make a conscious effort to burn those receipts, as the saying goes. Choose to forgive them. It might bring more peace to you than to them. Déjà lo.
Verse 6 offers another vital characteristic. Love does not delight in evil, but rejoices with the truth. Love takes no pleasure in the misfortune or the failures of others. It doesn't participate in gossip or that secret satisfaction some feel when others stumble. Instead, love finds its joy in what is true, what is right, what is good. It aligns itself with honesty and integrity.
This really compels us to examine where we find our entertainment and our sense of connection.
Yeah.
Do we bond over criticizing others? Do we find a sense of satisfaction in seeing someone else's downfall? Paul states that love operates in the complete opposite manner. It celebrates truth, even when that truth might be uncomfortable or challenging.
Absolutely.
So a reflective question for you. Does your joy tend to come from the pain of others or from their growth and well-being? ¿De dónde viene tu alegría?
Verse 7 beautifully encapsulates love's enduring qualities. It always protects, always trusts, always hopes, always perseveres. Each of these words carries significant weight. Protects, stege in Greek, implies shielding others from harm. Offering a covering of support. Always trusts doesn't mean being naive, but rather giving the benefit of the doubt. And believing in the best intentions of others.
Right.
Always hopes speaks to an unwavering optimism, even in the face of difficulties.
Yeah.
And always perseveres, highlights love's resilience, its ability to withstand challenges and never give up. Siempre confía, siempre espera, siempre persevera.
In the context of a church facing internal conflict and external pressures, these qualities were absolutely essential for survival and for maintaining a sense of community.
Right.
Love wasn't just a fleeting emotion.
Yeah.
It was an active commitment to stand by one another through thick and thin.
Absolutely.
In our own lives, consider what it truly means to be a steadfast friend to someone going through a difficult time, to offer that consistent support and an unwavering belief in them. That's love in action. So a practical step, reach out to someone in your life who might be struggling right now. A simple message of encouragement can make a significant difference. Ofrece apoyo.
Now we move to the contrast between the temporary nature of spiritual gifts and the eternal nature of love. In verse 8, love never fails, but where there are prophecies, they will cease. Where there are tongues, they will be stilled. Where there is knowledge, it will pass away.
Right.
Paul makes a profound statement here.
He does.
While gifts like prophecy, speaking in tongues, and even knowledge itself serve a purpose in this life, they're ultimately eophase.
Right.
Love, however, never fails. It's the one thing that endures into eternity. El amor nunca falla.
This is a real shift in perspective, especially for the Corinthians who seem so focused on these outward displays of spiritual prowess. Paul's essentially saying, don't become so preoccupied with these gifts that you neglect the one thing that truly holds lasting significance, the one thing that will endure. It prompts us to consider our own preoccupations, whether it's career advancement, material wealth, or even the pursuit of knowledge for its own sake. These things have their place. But are we truly investing in what possesses eternal value? Which is our capacity to love and connect with others. ¿Qué es lo que realmente importa?
The question posed in our source material is incredibly pertinent here. What will hold the greatest significance for you at the end of your life? Will it be the professional achievements you accumulated, the amount of money you amassed, or the depth and quality of your relationships, the love you extended and received? Paul's answer is unequivocal.
Verses 9 through 12 elaborate on this concept of our limited understanding in this current life compared to the fullness of what awaits us. For we know in part, but when completeness comes, now I see only a reflection, then I shall see face to face. Paul employs the analogy of ancient mirrors, which were often imperfect and provided a hazy image. To illustrate our present comprehension of God and spiritual realities, we only perceive things partially, incompletely. However, one day, when completeness comes, we will experience a clear, direct encounter.
Ahora vemos un reflejo, pero entonces veremos cara a cara.
This calls for a great deal of humility, doesn't it?
Yeah.
In a world that often rewards certainty and strong opinions, Paul reminds us that our knowledge is fundamentally limited. The proliferation of online experts who confidently pronounce on every subject stands in stark contrast to this notion of acknowledging the partial nature of our understanding.
Yeah.
True wisdom, Paul suggests, is rooted in recognizing the boundaries of what we know.
That's a powerful challenge for all of us, to become comfortable saying, I don't know, rather than feeling compelled to feign expertise on every topic.
Right.
It opens us up to continuous learning and to genuinely valuing the perspectives of others. Es importante ser humilde. Finally, we arrive at verse 13. And now these three remain: faith, hope, and love. But the greatest of these is love. Paul concludes his powerful discourse by emphasizing the enduring importance of faith, hope, and love. However, he makes it absolutely clear that love transcends the other two.
The theological insight here is profound. Faith is our trust in God, hope is our confident expectation of the future, but love is the very essence of God himself, as we find in 1 John 4:8. God is love. Therefore, in practicing love, we are participating in the very nature of the divine.
Right.
The idea that heaven itself operates on love is a powerful motivator for us to prioritize it in our lives right here and now. El amor es lo más grande.
Reflecting on the legacy we wish to leave behind, what do we want to be remembered for? Paul suggests this should be for the love we demonstrated, the relationships we cultivated,
Right.
rather than the material possessions we accumulated. So a final reflective question for you, our listener. How will you actively make love a priority in your life this week? What specific actions will you take? Como vas a priorizar el amor?
This timeless wisdom from 1 Corinthians 13 offers such a potent and enduring remedy for so many of the challenges we encounter today, including the kind of instantaneous judgment and social exclusion that characterizes our modern cancel culture. It's not about achieving flawless behavior or perfect communication, but about cultivating a consistent orientation towards love in all our interactions.
Yeah.
In our spoken words, our actions, and most importantly, in the underlying motivations of our hearts.
It really shifts the emphasis from outward appearances and perfect performance
Right.
to the inner condition of our hearts and our fundamental commitment to treating each other with patience, kindness, respect, and forgiveness. It's a journey of growth, not a destination of perfection.
Precisely. And on that note, we want to leave you with a call to action. Drop this in the comments. I'm choosing love over this week. Tag someone who needs this truth.